Standard divorce proceedings operate on a specific premise that the two parties are currently in a legally valid marriage. A dilemma arises when the foundation of that relationship is legally defective from the moment the ceremony concluded. Because the court cannot dissolve a marriage that never technically existed, it must instead utilize the mechanism of nullity to address these foundational flaws. Correctly identifying the nature of a marital defect is what determines whether the family court has the jurisdiction to intervene and grant relief. English law organizes marital defects into three distinct tiers. At the bottom is the non-marriage or non-qualifying ceremony. Above that is the void marriage, which is invalid from its inception. At the top is the voidable marriage, which remains valid until the court formally annuls it. This classification is a mandatory threshold. Only marriages categorized as void or voidable grant the parties access to financial remedies under the Matrimonial Causes Act. For a legal practitioner, establishing which tier a client's relationship occupies is the first requirement in securing their proprietary and financial rights. Section 3 of the module curriculum provides the framework for these precise statutory definitions. Distinguishing between these tiers determines a client's eligibility for financial relief. An error in classification at this stage can result in a total loss of legal standing. A void marriage is a union that never legally existed. In the eyes of the law, the formation was so flawed that it is treated as a nullity from the beginning. The curriculum identifies Section 11 of the Matrimonial Causes Act 1973 as the authority for the specific grounds that render a marriage void. The first ground is that the parties are within the prohibited degrees of relationship, such as being too closely related by blood. The second ground is a lack of age capacity. In England and Wales, the legal age for marriage is now strictly 18. The third ground is bigamy, or a previous subsisting marriage. While these unions are void by default, parties often seek a formal court order to finalize their financial status. A formal decree provides the legal certainty needed to trigger the court's power to divide assets, even in a marriage that was never valid. It is vital to distinguish these void marriages from what the text calls non-marriage or non-qualifying ceremonies. A non-marriage is a ceremony so deficient in its formalities that it falls entirely outside the scope of the Matrimonial Causes Act. Consequently, parties in a non-marriage have no right to apply for a decree of nullity, and therefore no right to apply for property or financial orders for themselves. This distinction makes the non-marriage classification a significant legal obstacle for any dependent spouse seeking financial protection. A voidable marriage follows a different logic. It is valid in law until a party successfully obtains a decree of nullity from the court. Section 3B of the curriculum points to Section 12 of the 1973 Act as the source for voidable grounds. These grounds include non-consummation due to incapacity or willful refusal. It covers lack of valid consent, including duress or mistake. Medical grounds apply, such as a sexually transmitted infection or third-party pregnancy. Finally, it's voidable if the respondent had an undisclosed acquired gender. Unlike void unions, many of these grounds require proof that the applicant was unaware of the issue when the ceremony took place. The voidable category requires a higher burden of proof, as the applicant must actively demonstrate why a legally recognized union should be set aside. Even if a ground is proven, voidable applications are subject to specific legal defenses, known as statutory bars. The curriculum references Section 13 of the Matrimonial Causes Act as the authority for these bars. The first bar is conduct, or abrogation, occurring if an applicant acts in a way suggesting they accept the marriage, despite knowing they have grounds to annul it. The second bar is delay. Most voidable grounds must be brought within a 3-year time limit. This 3-year limit does not apply to non-consummation cases, which can be presented much later. These statutory bars ensure legal finality for marriages where defects were implicitly or explicitly accepted over time. When a decree of nullity becomes absolute, the legal status of the parties changes permanently. They are no longer spouses. At this point, the remedies for void and voidable marriages converge. Both allow the court to exercise full jurisdiction to issue property and financial orders. Securing this decree differentiates the outcome for a client from that of a simple cohabitant or a party to a non-marriage ceremony. It also establishes the right to apply for financial provision from an estate under the Inheritance Act of 1975. The technical requirements of Sections 11 and 12 provide the legal basis for these essential statutory protections. The law also ensures that children of these unions remain legitimate if there was a reasonable belief that the marriage was valid. Ultimately, the correct classification of a marital defect is a fundamental responsibility for any family law practitioner. This technical distinction directly impacts a client's long-term financial security and their standing in probate matters. Nullity serves as a precise tool for addressing foundational flaws in adult relationships, providing legal clarity where standard divorce cannot.